There's
Hooray.
10 minutes.
Yep, you are.
Yep.
Am I live?
Yep.
Yep.
The whole world.
So who have we got tonight? Let's just remind myself. We have got participants. There's Andy, Anne, David, Trina, Emma, Margaret, Pat, Roger, Judith, and David. So that's 11 of us all tonight. Amazing, isn't it?
Record.
I gotta tell you a little bit of a story. I was in Corsham yesterday, right? It was Corsham in Wiltshire. So there I was in Wiltshire, and accidentally bumping into my good old mate David. He even had shades on and everything. I say, "Hi, David, how are you? Yeah, blah blah blah." And it's like, right, okay, we crack on. At the end of the day, this is typical me, right? I'm going to the catering, right? And catering's got all these little cakes in a little container ready, right? So I'm thinking, right, okay, that's good. So I says, right, I'll go and offer them to everyone. I'm offering everyone cakes now, right? So I got 25 of these cakes in little containers, right? And I managed to get rid of 15 of them, right? And guess who ends up having 10 cakes in these little containers, which I inadvertently had to take home with me?
David Tennant.
David Tennant. Who else?
I should have given some to David Tennant, right? And my daughter, the day before, she said, "Dad, like Andy, this sometimes happens." She sent me £20 in my bank account. My daughter, right? My eldest daughter, and she said, "Dad, treat yourself for Father's Day." So I did. So I was standing in this pub now, in Corsham, and I bought myself a pint of Heineken Zero and lemonade.
Wow! Push the boat out.
I pushed the boat out, yeah. And I bought a book on ghosts. I said they had 3 books on ghosts there, so I said I'll have that one. They said you can't have that one. I said, why? It's the last one we've got. And I said, oh, right, okay, I'll have that one then instead. So that was it. So I eventually drove back, and it was great. I occasionally smoke when I'm acting, right? But I don't smoke. Don't ask. So I got these fake bags, and I'm doing these draws every now and again, right? And David's in the background, right? Smoking away, right? And they're catching all of this up on camera, and it's great. And I've got them all in stitches in the background. Me going, "Oh yeah, man!" And I'm shaking away, right? And there's me. And then I can't even tell you what production this is. And we've got this scene, right? And I've got to do some voting, right? And I spoiled one of the ballot papers. And the producer's going, "Oh my God." And they've got this on camera. And I said, "Oh, did I upset you?" And I said, "Oh, at least you did something wrong for once." So that was good. It all worked well. So then I got back, and I've been cuddling up with the sheep today. Our 2 little miniature Borroway sheep, and Baldrick's had loads of cuddles today. I thought David needs to know that one. On that note, right, we're going to crack over to other people's news. Right, we're going to start off with the women. Roger, anything you want to say?
Well, I found something historical, archaeological. You want to know?
Go on then. I'll tell you what, I'll cut my nose hairs while I'm waiting.
Well, it's to do with something near Peterborough, Mean Valley. They're going to show off the site of the first POW camp in the world.
Oh!
Time Napoleonic Wars time, 1707, 1814. And they were famous there for the modelling prisoners did, 7,000 of them, with bone and whatever else was handy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah!
When they opened up, they can still have found the field with around the foot the earthworks left.
I think Time Team did an episode, didn't they, on that?
Yeah, I think they did. When he said modelling, I imagined all the soldiers in the field, you know.
No, they made ships and all sorts of really wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's just the the footings, the base of the buildings.
Yeah.
There's a hospital there, barracks, school, I think banking, and all sorts of self-contained.
Where was it, Roger? Did you say
Peterborough. Yeah,
South of Peterborough.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Norman Cross.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, you know.
What is really interesting about what Roger's just said, if you just finished, Roger, and I know Roger's got a cough, so I needed to save him then. So one thing that's really interesting about this is what Roger's talking about is that most of the buildings that were constructed for the Second World War no longer exist in Britain, right? They've all been demolished. All these things, all these field hospitals, are all gone, right? And obviously being involved with the saving of the only gatehouse remaining of this entire military base in Barry, thanks to Kate's work as well. Saving that one building amongst a huge estate, just one single building and a tower, right? And then thinking what Roger said, we've got the footprints of buildings from the Napoleonic Wars, and we've got very little now in regards to our Second World War history and the First World War history. I can't think where we've got practice trenches associated with the First World War, but barracks and stuff like that. First World War military POW containment camps. Where are all those? So thanks for adding that in, Roger. Anything from you, Margaret?
Well, my son was saying, can I see you on your archaeology thing? I said, well, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So he scrolled down and he found me. He found a still of me, and next to it, it said prehistoric wonders. He said that to me.
You're doing very well, Margaret. Yes.
I think you should take that
Prehistoric
complimentary.
wonder. But other than that, no, I haven't got any news.
Alongside Anne, it's got a dragon. Actually, I meant the Anne in the other class. I forgot we had
That's not very nice.
Put my finger in it, haven't I?
And then we were 10. Yeah.
Exactly. Not talking about dragons. Anne, what do you want to tell us?
Nothing. I've got nothing to tell you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Not now, anyway.
Let's tell him off.
What about you, David?
No, sorry.
Pat?
No, Dave.
Oh, me.
No. Yeah.
That kind of moved. It's the same room.
Sorry, nothing for me. Sorry.
Okay, and Andy.
Talking of dragons, I've just out of curiosity, it's just reminding me of putting a dragon on a roof. Probably tomorrow.
Andy, can you get? Hang on, stop a minute. Andy, are you winding me up today? Because
no, and it's come from Wales as well, so it's a Welsh dragon.
No, hang on. There's something else about this, right? For my parents' anniversary, right? Somebody had a Welsh dragon on their roof, which was made of iron, this big thing, right? And they've given me this dragon that was on a roof to give to my parents.
Oh
wow! No, this is a terracotta one, like a finial, but it's quite big.
Yeah,
going on the promenade at Arnside.
Yeah, I'm going to come up with something else in a minute now.
Number 45. It's the one with the scaffolding on that I've been doing some work on.
Yeah.
They had it re-roofed, so they just finished it off, and it had lost both of its finials, so you got a dragon for one of them. So
are you doing it? Is that your job?
Well, no, I'll be helping put it up because we need to get it finished. So.
It's a lot of good. It's a lot of work putting a finial
quite
on.
big.
Which,
I don't go on roofs, so I'll let them do that. I'll go.
Yeah.
I don't think you should have done that.
No, exactly. Finials that I know of in Wales, these Victorian houses.
Yeah.
They are not. I don't know if your terracotta one is actually hollow, Andy, but these are solid bits.
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, they're usually pretty solid because they need a fair weight on them. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I remember that you used to have these big orbs with a shaft on the top, and you can't lift them up. And these are on roofs.
Yeah, it's like the one Stuart had. Trellet.
Was it? Oh yeah. I know what you mean. It's stone finials. Yes. No, that was hollow, Andy. It was hollow, Roger.
Hollow sphere.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. But that's true. Right. Okay. Let's crack on. Emma and Dad.
No, nothing from me. I've been very distracted today.
Right. She's been very distracted watching trailers from 28 years later.
I have. Yeah.
Emma and I have been watching Stonehenge.
It's actually, yes, I've got to say that, Margaret.
Very good.
Really good.
Oh, yeah, I see what it is. They got these little cliques now on WhatsApp discussing it in a week, exactly.
Cliquey groups.
Yeah, cliquey groups, exactly. And Judith is
I'm on the
involved.
wrong one, apparently.
Yeah,
You're in
I'm on a different one. I don't know what I've done.
appeared on
I
an
pressed a button and
announcement.
something happened. I don't know.
we're all, don't
All
worry,
these strange
Judith. We're
people
all
coming to your door.
confused.
Yeah.
Exactly. Judith, anything you want to say?
Yes.
Oh,
Do you
Oh,
remember
wow,
back in
oh.
April? Do you remember back in April? I know it's a long time ago and I hadn't remembered. Apparently, an Iron Age chariot was reconstructed from old bits and pieces that they'd found in Nottingham, and they'd reconstructed it and put it in a museum in Nottingham.
Oh, didn't know anything about that.
No, it's I've got a little YouTube clip. A little YouTube clip that I shared on this group, but of course, nothing's happening now, is it?
Only I saw it. I think.
It's on a channel called Hidden History. And I can share it, but I don't know how. Can I share it onto Zoom? Is there a way I can?
If you, right, technically, I could. Right, let's just discuss this logically. Right, Gina, anything you want to say before we crack on?
No, thank you.
There is a way. Andy's co-admin, right? So Andy was so I can keep control of the screen. Andy, can you go into contributors and put her on co-admin?
I don't know what to do.
Find it.
Participants, go on to participants.
All right there, yeah. Got you.
Yeah.
I can share content from, but not.
Yeah, put it on co-admin.
Right, and how do you do that?
Oh, hang on a minute. Okay, hang on. I'll give it a go, and we'll talk her through it now. Hang on a minute. She's co-host. I've done that, Andy. Right. So what it is, right? So Judith, what you do, you press on the share icon
On my
phone. The contents of your screen.
But I'm on my phone. I've got it on my phone, not on my iPad. I know.
All right.
Okay. Probably can't do it.
Look, mate. Look, I tell you what we'll do. Send me a link or something. But what we will do now, we'll share my screen.
Right.
We'll see if we can find the chariot. Start. Okay. Okay. This will all be okay. And there.
I could send it. I could share it to your St. Barrack's Day 27th of September group, but you've removed me.
Everyone's been removed. That's the problem.
I could have sent it to that, couldn't I? Oh, never mind.
If you send it to email, that would be good.
Right, I will do. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's try and get into. I've changed my screen doodah thingamajig. Right. Okay. Oh yes. There's all the stuff that we're going to be doing. Right. So I'm just using something different today. So if we go back out of there, if we type into here, and we type in quite quickly, if we type in chariot reconstruction.
I've messaged you on a text with the link.
Okay, hang on a minute. Is that the one there? No.
No, it's in a Nottingham Lakeside Museum.
So put Nottingham in.
Nottingham.
That'll be it. Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Oh, wow.
So what they're saying is that the bit actually for a museum, that's actually looking quite modern. So what you're saying, they've used all the turret rings, all the rain rings.
Yeah, and they've reconstructed it from the best guesses that they can make from what it must have looked like. There's a little short video showing you around it, if you can find that. It's about 3 minutes long.
Right, okay. We're going to give it a go, only to keep her happy. Right.
You don't have to. I just thought the group might be interested, that's all.
So we're gonna go on YouTube, and we're gonna type in This is side on. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay.
YouTube shut. Do you want me to give you the code?
Right. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to see what we can do now. Hang on. If you give me the name of this video, I tell you what, if I can't find it with this now, Chariot Reconstruction, we'll have to do
Yeah.
it. So Chariot.
Video.
I've got to do this side on. Chariot. We'll probably get some dodgy stuff coming through now. Chariots of Fire. Recon.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, maybe not. Right. All right then.
No.
Process of making a chariot. Is that the one?
No.
That one?
Yeah.
No. I tell you what, if you get me the link,
I've sent you I've messaged you it.
There's that woman there. She
Looks like Margaret.
If you can open
like Margaret.
If you can open your text, Carl, I've sent you a text with the link.
All right, then. What I'll do, I'll have a look in the break. But right. So what we're going to do, we're going to crack on, and we're going to go there. What can you see on your screen?
Judith.
I don't know.
Me.
Margaret.
Oh dear.
Right. Can you see the images?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's all the wrong way. Oh no, it's the right way. Oh right. Cool. Cool. It's all the right way. Okay. So I don't know how big these images are, but we're doing something different today. So
why am I in Spain?
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. All right. Oh, all right. Oh, it's gone.
Are there not enough little boxes to put us all in?
Hang on a minute. Okay, let's just this. I'm doing something different, right? Okay, so
I'm in Spain again.
Yeah.
are you little now?
Oh no, we're here now.
How big are you on the screen?
I'm slightly bigger than the others.
How big are you now?
I've gone now, I think.
Oh, hang on a minute. Look at this. You there?
I'm down at the bottom all of my own.
Look, I don't care. Let's get on with it.
Oh dear me.
Right. Okay then. I there you are. You're at the bottom. So
That's
you're on the
okay.
How big are you on the screen?
A bit too big for my liking, but never mind. I'm in
Now,
two
are you
places. I've gone now.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's Roger.
Oh, God.
I
There's
think
Anne.
because there's so many of us, we can't all.
Look, I'm gonna crack on. Look, let me get on with this. Right. All right. Right. Okay. I'm just putting you on the screen just to wind you all up. Right.
No.
So the one thing that I'm looking at the Roman stuff, right, and I'm just thinking, right, that my lists are slowly growing, right, of the stuff I just want to do before we do anything. So I've got next week, we're just going to be looking at loads of images of the Roman Empire just for the sake of it. The following week, right, we're going to be looking at Roman writers and who they are. So you're going to know who Tacitus the first and second are. You're going to know that who Pliny the first and second are. You're going to know who Plutarch is, Appian, Cassius. You're going to know all these different people, right? And I want to do that because when I'm talking about Ptolemy, who the hell is Ptolemy, right? Who the hell is Julius Caesar? Yeah, you know who Julius Caesar was, but some of you didn't know he was also a writer. So I want us to sort of put that into a timeline, right? And understanding this is the western part of the Roman Empire, right? And and Anne's on the screen now. If you don't mind Anne being there, that's fine.
I'm all right on the screen.
What?
I'm all right wherever I am.
Oh, that's good.
As long as I can see what we're doing.
I'm going to move you to the
There
top
she
left.
is.
There they are. Right. So what we've got when we think of Rome, Rome is not just Rome. Rome is the component part of this fuller map, which would obviously be in the east. But what we're really focused on is Italy, and we're thinking about Carthage, and we're thinking The biggest thing with Italy and Carthage was all the stuff in the middle, like the islands, like Sicily, like modern day Spain, like Gallia, like the area of Gaul, like Mauritania, Numidia, Carthage. These are the areas that we're really interested in, and trying to let this whole thing flow. So people making strange noises in the background. So again, what we've got to do, we've got to talk about Carthage, but we've also got to talk about Rome at the same time. Yeah, and so the one thing about all of this,
thanks, Carl.
The one thing about all of this, oh my God, it's bigger on the screen as well. The one thing about all of this is just painting this picture of trying to, at the expense of Carthage, right? Understanding the story, right? And the growth of empire and the growth of decline of Carthage. So you've got the growth of the Roman Empire and a decline of Carthage. But when we talk about empire, we don't really come into the empire until a few years before the birth of Christ. So the empire starts off with a little kingdom, then a few other bits and pieces, a republic, and then eventually an empire. And one thinking about all of this and thinking about all these captions and think about all these images and so on and all these different things that I want us to do today, right? Is painting that sort of picture of this world. Now, what we've got there is quite a lot of things that I want to do, right? So what I've got to do is try to get into this properly, right? And try to get into these images, right? I've got, again, I'm trying a different thing of technology here. Hang on a minute. Nope. I'm trying something else. Right. So hopefully this will work. Right. Okay. Bear with me. Screenshots. Is that the one? Nope. Is recently saved. Yep. Is that the one? Select on that. Yep. And there, summary, all. And yeah, I'm getting a few problems with my technology at this minute, but we will get onto it in a moment. Modify, all. So I tell you what I could do, I'm going to take us out of this. Okay, and hopefully we will. See, when you're trying something new, right? So what I'm going to do is to open this window here, right? Okay, go to app, and right. Okay, you can tell that there's something not going right at this minute. But Andy, whilst I'm trying to get this sorted out, can you tell us what you know about Carthage? Just tell us what you were taught at school.
Wasn't taught anything at Carthage school.
You weren't at all?
No, not a thing.
Grain, about the grain. They grew all the grain.
They grew quite a lot of grain, right? But the one thing that what we've got to hang on a minute. The one thing that we do have when we're thinking about Carthage is that there's this going to be this fear that Rome is going to have over these other worlds. And what I've got here, I've managed to get control of the screen, so I know what I'm doing now. Right, so here we go. We're gonna screen share again, and we're gonna get back and share. Hopefully the screen. Start broadcasting. Okay. It always usually happens when I try a different type of technology. So, okay. Hopefully the screen. There you go. It's working. Oh, excellent. Right. Okay. And we still got David in the corner, so we'll get rid of David. And the other David, hang on a minute. Hang on. He's hang on. Right. Hang on. No, he keeps coming up. David, you keep coming up.
Hey,
Leave it
Still there.
There.
what's that?
It's working. Are you
What?
seeing a map on the screen?
Yeah.
Loving
What?
it. Do you know one of the things in life I love is maps, right? I really do love them. When I was I can remember when I was 10, I used to have this big map on the wall, right, of the local area, and I used to have little sticky labels and stuff, and I used to say there's the tumulus is there, there's the Roman sites there, and I planned to visit all of them. I did with my granddad. So it's good. So anyway, looking at this, for example, there were three Punic Wars, right? And when we're thinking about all of this, right? The first Punic War going to the year 264 BC, all the way to the very ends of the likes of the Carthaginian world, right? And the end of the Carthaginian world would come slowly, but eventually, after 100 odd years, Carthage would be no more. And it's almost as if you're talking about the green area eventually absorbing all of the Carthaginian world, and again painting this history of the Roman world, knowing all these little bits and pieces, or some of these little bits and pieces, helps us understand how the Romans fought when they eventually took over and influenced the scene in Britain after AD 43. So, if only you could see me now. I'm really expressive with my hands and stuff. But before Carthage goes to war against Rome, Carthage had been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? At this stage, Rome is still quite small. If you want to compare this on the map, there's all the orange areas of Carthage, green areas, Rome, that's it. But eventually Rome would absorb all those orange areas. So again, we've got a little image, couple of little images of another map showing the journey of Hannibal over the Pyrenees and over the Alps. And there's always talk of elephants. When I picked on Andy earlier on, I actually thought that maybe Andy's syllabus in school was very similar to my syllabus in school. What we did when we were in school, we did the Roman invasion of Britain, and we actually did look at the Punic War, right? And I think that was in the first year of comprehensive school. So we learned about Hannibal, and in many ways, what I'm doing, I'm going back to school, and I'm basically saying what we got to do to understand Rome. We've got to do all this other stuff. Yeah. So what you can see is loads of battles on the map. Okay. Some of them naval battles, which I've got Mylae, which we look at that. Mylae, which is basically between Sicily and the mainland. Messana. There's another naval battle called Panormus on there. So you've got loads of little naval battles as well, and loads of land battles in the deserts of North Africa, and on land in Egypt, and along the way in Spain. You've got all these little things going on, right? So I don't profess that we're going to be looking at every single battle today. It's not possible, right? We're going to be looking at Cannae, which is in 216, in the likes of Italy, which is a very, very important battle. We're going to be looking at Siege of Carthage. Okay, we're going to be looking at one of those great victories of Hannibal over the Romans. So all these different things. I don't know if you saw the film. I don't know if you saw the film that involved Harrison Ford last year, and Indiana Jones, and the box of secrets or whatever it was. That involves Syracuse, which is on there, which the Romans again. So again, looking at this as another colourful map here, the Battle of Zama was the end game, really. The Battle of Zama was the big defeat, and it was the great victory for Rome. But again, major battle there, Cannae and Zama, the two big battles in this whole scene, right? And you can see there that bit by bit over the 3 Punic Wars, Carthage lost control, and Rome expanded. Rome expanded and added Greece. Bits of Greece were allies of Carthage, right? This is why they're basically not on this map before. There were lots of anyone who was an ally of Carthage ended up getting absorbed by Rome. But this is the year 146 BC. We've got another 100 years to go before we get to Julius Caesar and his assassination. We've got another 100 odd years to go before we've got then the successful conquest of Roman era Britain. So it's 300 years really. So again, Hannibal, and the name Scipio is very, very important. The fight between Scipio and Hannibal. So those are the two figures on the stage really of all of this. And again, feeding that in. And one of the things, I've actually got a book in front of me, which is great. And the book is called The Rise and Fall of Ancient Rome. And I've got this other book that is so wonderfully illustrated. These are one of 300 books on Rome that I've got. And the other book is the one that we're going to be, I'm just going to be going through it next week and saying, look at that, with a little bit of a map of where we are. So again, not explaining much more about this map, but one of the things that heightens when you think about 264, Rome is just basically in that bit of Italy, 264, there is the dark purple, right? 100 years later, plus 20 odd years, Rome itself as I don't know, 5 times bigger, right? But Rome has got a long way to go before it becomes the empire of choice. Now, this, you could refer to this as the Roman Empire as well, but it's not. It's the Roman Republic, but it's quite easy to call it an empire. This is Carthaginian Empire, the Roman Republic, but Rome is acting really imperialistically. Eventually, it doesn't have an emperor at this time. It would have an emperor, and that's the situation, right? So this is a nice little interesting image. And I wanted to chuck this in here as a little bit of a red herring. This is something that we might do, right? We might actually do a bit of ancient Greece as well, because to understand Rome, you've got to understand ancient Greece, to understand where you actually start to field the idea of architectural styles. Again, the Doric, Ionic, Corinthian orders of architecture, which I'm sure would interest you, lots of you as well. So this is something that I keep sort of giving you an idea of, right? After the Gauls sacked Rome in 390 BC, right? So 390 BC. So after the Gauls sacked Rome in 390 BC, this is way before this period that we're talking about today, 264. This is 390, right? When Rome is just basically a tiny little peapot, I was going to use another word there, peapot of a place that eventually absorbs Tuscany, right? Rome itself, north of the word Italy on the Tuscany, the Etruscans, Rome has still got to absorb all that. The Etruscans at this point absolutely bloody hate the Romans, right, in 264. What?
The kings to start, the Etruscans, the first rulers.
Yeah, the Etruscans were the ones that the Romans stole everything from, basically. But when we, I always used to say that the Etruscans, which we're not doing today at all, whether we're going to touch upon them in any major detail, I don't know. It really depends how I feel we're going. Because the main thing, I've got to allow us to feel into Rome. I've got to allow us to sort of place ourselves into understanding the Roman world. And it's only then that you can actually trust yourself and make an avid conclusion. And what I mean by trust yourself to make an avid conclusion, there's several fields of thought when you look at the Roman invasion of Britain, right? I get placed into 3 camps. The first camp is that I'm obsessed with Rome and I only want to talk about Rome, and I've got a romantic way of looking at Rome, which is absolute rubbish. there's the other way that I might be looking at Rome in a blasé sort of way that Roman era Britain is really much encompassing lots of native British stuff, and we're really struggling to understand what really Roman era Britain is. Or then I've got more of a sort of, then there's another view camp people can put me in, that there's some people saying out there, which is total utter nonsense and poppycock, that there was no such thing as the Roman invasion and the Romans never ever got over here. I've heard people talking about that, right? But obviously, I'm not in that camp at all. I'm actually, my real camp is that looking at the Roman era as a time and place that is influenced in Britain more by the local people than Rome actually attributed its sense of influence in Britain, which is probably, you need to understand all these different facets to actually get there. And this is really important because I remember teaching about the Second World War, and the person I was teaching Second World War to, she basically said, right, can you teach me the Second World War for 1 hour a week, right? And because she was doing A-level history. And I basically started saying to her, I said, you can either be in two camps involved in the Second World War. The Germans would never ever win the Second World War under any circumstance, or you'd be in the camp that Germany can't win the Second World War, or Germany can win the Second World War, right? Those are three definitive differences, right? And then eventually, when I'm teaching the Second World War, I'm in the first camp. There's no way on the planet ever that Germany could have won the Second World War, but you've got to be there, right? Because when I was a child, I used to be very much into, oh, Germany could have won the Second World War. It could have done X, Y, and Z. So when you've worked out that they couldn't have done X, Y, and Z, or you could be the other person that thinks, oh, Germany was evil and all its allies were evil, blah, 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 and you didn't look at anything else, right? But then you then eventually come along to one that Germany could never have won the Second World War under any circumstance. Lots of people don't agree with me on that, but this is the way I teach the Second World War. But one of the things which is more acceptable is when we go to another period in history, when we look at the Roman era, when you actually start to see the problems that I get when I'm doing my research on the Romans. For example, so some weeks I'm trying to do my little Roman era remains in Britain, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, right, okay, I want to find evidence of a Roman stone bridge in Britain, and you might get some stuff at Percy Bridge, and you might get a few other bits and pieces, but nothing major, nothing to say that they actually built fully stone bridges. We've got no evidence of Roman fully stone built arches like Segovia in Spain, or and wonderful aqueducts that lead into Rome, and so on and so on and so on. Right? You don't see any evidence of that in Britain at all, right? So, and then you've got to start to work out why that is, and this is what we're doing. Anyway, back to this image, which when I told you, I warned you, when we're going into the Romans, I just go off on total tangents about the Romans because we're doing the Romans. So after the Gauls sacked Rome in 390, again, that date, 390, keep it in your mind, 390 over and over again. This was one thing that made the Romans, 390, right? End of. The Romans built the great Servian walls, and these walls themselves were, well, when you think about the foundations, were probably about 8.5 meters, 10 meters tall. If you go down to the foundations, they're actually showing above the surface 7.5 meters high. And these were completed in 378 BC, probably on the 14th of October at 1215. However, and the one thing about the Roman dating system is really interesting, right? And again, I keep saying this every week. If I never do this, and I'm going to do it now. The Roman dating system is based upon who was in charge at the time. So you would basically, so let's make this simple. So if you if you were looking at Claudius, you might say in the first year of the reign of Claudius, which to us is 41 AD, second year of Claudius, 42, right? So then you start again. You start right with Nero, right? And then you've got the year of the four emperors. Forget that one. But the fact of the matter is, it's based upon who was reigning, right? And it's actually what they did in ancient Egypt as well. So if the problem is with when you're looking at the dating system in ancient Egypt is that, say, for example, you've got a pharaoh that we didn't know existed and reigned for like 2 years, right? So you might get all the mess involving Akhenaten, right? And you've got thinking, well, who reigned after him? How was somebody missing, and so on, right? So if you don't get that pharaoh in the mix, then your dating system's gone. So if you got Pharaoh A, we know about Pharaoh A who reigned for 10 years. We don't know about Pharaoh B who reigned for 3 years, but we know about Pharaoh C who reigned for 5 years. So you're 3 years out because it's based on the reign, not actually a chronology of when Jesus Christ was born. So again, thinking about this date as well, architecture, the walls made the city all but impregnable to later attacks. So at this time, they're looking at which was the leader of the republic, and unfortunately, because you could only be a leader of the republic, and there was usually 2 leaders of the republic for no more than 2 years. There you go. You need to have them all. So again, giving you a bit of a background. There we go. You've got Hannibal on the left, and you've got Scipio on the right. And basically, the meeting of the Roman general Scipio and his opponent Hannibal just before the Battle of Zama in the year 202 BC is one of the most famous encounters in history. Scipio crushed Hannibal's army the following day. And when we're thinking about that Battle of Zama, it's also something taught in that's going to be taught in schools as well. I can remember we did discuss the Battle of Zama in school, even if it was for a minute. But again, this is all painting that scene, and maybe this is a little bit wrong. The Roman the uniforms are wrong in this, right? Particularly on the sense of the Romans, they didn't develop that type of uniform until hundreds of years later. And these two are meeting before the battle. So why have you got people dead around? But anyway, that's life. That's artistic license for you. And this whole sort of getting an idea of what's going on, and what you've got is Rome was developing its own distinctive architecture. And again, these types of temples, these types of buildings, and again, that very question, if we zoom in on that, right, that's in Portunus, the temple of Portunus. So what we've got is this temple as well. You're thinking, do we have any examples of this in Britain, right? Why haven't we got examples of this in Britain? Why are there loads in Spain? Why is there loads in Greece? Why are there loads in France? Why are these all over the place? But why don't we have these specific buildings standing in Britain, right? This is what we need to answer. Why? So the Carthaginians themselves, this idea of these wonderful war elephants, right? And I remember looking at this today, and I'm thinking when you think about the books and the films associated with Lord of the Rings, and you've got like these war type elephant type things in the film, and they're decked off with little miniature castles and stuff on them and all the rest of it, and and you're thinking about these defensive vehicles. You can tell how these sort of have influenced history. When Alexander the Great came across war elephants, his army was absolutely petrified when he was going across the people of the Indus Valley, as he was stretching his empire all the way across into the 30s and the 20s. 30s and the 20s, the 330s and the 320s BC. So elephants have seen their little play in history for a long time. So the Carthaginians regularly used elephants. And again, you could say the tanks of ancient warfare in a modern sense in battle, and the Roman legionary soon learned how to counter them. However, and they did not much affect the Punic War. So in other words, these big beasts would be something that would be used by the likes of Hannibal, right? But the way to deal with elephants is to make them panic, and they have a tendency of turning around and trampling your own men. And so the Romans were able to deal with these beasts, but not initially, right? So we're looking at the Punic Wars, and we're talking about the dates for that and how that sort of unfolds. So this image itself, Lake Trasimene in Umbria, was the scene of one of Rome's greatest defeats by Hannibal's army in 217 BC. So again, this is a great defeat in Italy. This is on Italian ground, right? And when we were talking last week about Spartacus, and we were looking at the victories that Spartacus would eventually have in the future world, right? He probably thought, well, if Hannibal can defeat the Romans, because the Spartacus was an educated person, right? And they would have been taught, they would have understood about their history, and this is the whole point. So again, this sort of this great victory that the Carthaginians, basically the Carthaginian, we'll look at this as well. The Carthaginians trapped the Romans by the lakeside and drove them into the water. You could. Hannibal had elephants when this happened, but we'll come on to that 217 BC in a short while. So again, thinking about this map, thinking about how this sort of map starts. So let's just give you a few figures. Let's just give you a little. And to be honest with you, I've not read anything on Wikipedia on this at all today, but one thing that I have done is I've nicked loads of Wikipedia images. They're great. So facing each other across the Messina Straits. So there we go. Hang on, I don't think I got a thing on this where I can actually draw stuff in. So there's Messina and Rhegium, and Messina and Rhegium that's when we were. Last week we mentioned about Spartacus. We got to 71 BC, and Spartacus was going to get to Rhegium and Messina, and the pirates let him down and all the rest of it. But that's going to be in a future world. And basically, you can see on this map that there are areas. All the yellow stuff is other kingdoms, right? So north, you've got Syracuse, you've got the Greeks. Damnable Greeks. The Greeks have got colonies everywhere. Greeks have got colonies in Marseille. The Greeks have got colonies all over the Mediterranean. But anyway, so facing each other across the Messina Straits, Rome and Carthage had friendly treaties dating back to 509 BC. Right? These were friendly treaties. 509 BC. Rome was a peapot of the place in 509 BC. It was just coming out of they were just coming out off the hill, basically, of Rome, the eternal city there, whatever. But 509 BC. But what we're talking about is there were constant tensions between these people south of us, who are pretty big, right? The Romans felt threatened by the Carthaginians. Like every empire, the Carthaginians were next to go. At this time of the Carthaginians, there would naturally be, just after that, there would be the Greeks. And before that, there would be the Greeks. Well, naturally, before the great Carthaginian and the Roman world fighting, there was Alexander the Great in the 330s and the 320s, right? That would be the great empire towards the east. Alexander the Great left Rome alone. This tiny little republic alone in the 330s, 320s, right? That was in the west. Alexander the Great went to the east. If Alexander the Great had turned west the Roman Empire would have never happened. We'd be talking about the Greek Empire, and it's unlikely the Greeks would ever come over to Britain anyway. Why would they? It's a cold place. So all of this time between 509 and 264, the Romans, there was tension, and there would be friendly treaties and there would be tension. One of the things that we do know is that the Carthaginians were technologically more advanced than the Romans. Shipping, they were great boat builders. This is why they had like a Mediterranean empire, because of their shipping and trading with the Greeks and so on. I can remember one thing from school is that how true this is, I don't know, but I remember this is one thing that a history teacher told me from school. He said the Carthaginians were doing really well against the Romans until one of the Carthaginians' boats was washed up on shore just near Rome, right? And what the Romans did, they took this ship apart and they learned how to build military triremes and military fighting vessels out at sea. And then what happened is that the Romans used that technology then to defeat the Carthaginians. There's a similar story in the Second World War. I'm going to tell you this anyway. I don't know. It was an American heavy bomber. Oh no, it wasn't. It was it was just after the Second World War. So there was a Cold War. So there was a highly advanced American bomber that came down on Russian territory. So between the late 1940s and early 1950s, and this bomber came down. And there were little imperfections in it, and there were little holes in the wrong places, and little screws and bolts, and there were things, right? So when the Russians put this plane together, they kept all the holes in it, right? And they kept all the screws and bolts in the wrong place, right? They were initial mistakes by the Americans, but the Americans didn't sort out the mistakes. They had little holes in there. They didn't patch them up. So the Russians put these in this plane, and it wouldn't work properly, right? But what happened between the 260s and the 240s and so on was that the vessel that washed up on the shore just outside Rome was a complete Carthaginian ship, and they were able to reconstruct it to the nail. So what we're talking about is that the Carthaginians go way back into the 800s BC and beyond, and it's more or less said that the Carthaginians started off more like the Phoenicians. They were traders. The Carthaginians had extended their power up and down. I don't know who's just left us, but the Carthaginians extended themselves up and down the coast, right, of Africa, all right? And then they were able to capture the Balearic Islands, big bits of Sardinia, Corsica, Sicily, the Iberian Peninsula, big chunks of the Iberian Peninsula. So it's an extending empire found in Malaga. Andy, whoever that is, can you let them in? They were found in Malaga, Cadiz, and controlling what they did was a great thing. So they were larger and far richer than Rome. Carthaginian was ruled by mercantile oligarchy traders, and basically this is the thing. They were very different people. They were very different people. And then, but naturally, I don't know who said earlier on, but the Carthaginians were able to trade with ancient Egypt. They were able to get the grain around the place. They were really good. And the Carthaginians had a different sense of fighting, right? The Carthaginians relied on mercenary armies who often did not pay, led by Carthaginian generals whom it failed to support in success, but always punished in defeat. So, however, as a city of merchants, it had an excellent navy, while Rome, land power, had no navy at all to start off with. So in other words, the Carthaginians were able to hit the Roman world with impunity, right? Because they had a navy, right? The Romans didn't. And this is why the Romans were in the boot of Italy, because they weren't getting the grain from Egypt. They weren't really trading with the Greeks. They weren't doing much. They were just a land power, right? So again, thinking about this is the first Punic War, and some details again. That these wars went on forever, you know. So if you're a young soldier and you served in these sort of mercenary armies of the Carthaginians that was sometimes not paid, right? Then again, that happens in history a lot, that you get mercenary armies. This isn't just the Carthaginians or the Romans or the Greeks. You just didn't pay them. And then they would turn against you, but that's another thing altogether. So everything set off in 264 to 241 BC, and again, 23-year war, which is a long war by any chalk of imagination. You know, the First World War was massively influential on us. And if you look at the facts and figures, you know, 4 years. The Second World War, if you want to bend it a little bit and sort of 39-0, and you're 7 years, it's not, you know, just about 6 years. And look at the Second World War. You're looking at the amount of influence that had, right? This was a 23-year war, an endless war going on and on over Italy, Africa, Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, involving the Greeks, involving the Egyptians, involving the Phoenicians, involving everyone, right? 23-year war, and eventually it was a Roman victory. This was the first of our Punic Wars, right? And what happened then was Sicily was grabbed, was nicked, as a peace treaty. So in other words, what this meant was that the Romans were now closer to Carthage, not the other way around. Before, the Carthaginians were closer to Rome. Now, this big thing in the Mediterranean, one of the biggest islands in the Mediterranean, was actually now controlled by the Romans. So this is all one of those usual things. Messina, there it is on the map, opposite Regum, in Sicily. What happened is they basically said, this sort of little bit of a territory here. What happened was that one side on the island was asking for help from the Carthaginians, the grey area. The Greeks were a little bit aware in the green there, Syracuse, against everyone, right? So when Messina appealed for Roman help against Carthage, and usually the Senate let the assembly decide the issue, and the Roman people voted for war, and the first of 3 Punic Wars against the Carthaginians. This is a Roman name. The Punic Wars was a name that the Romans gave this 23-year-long war. And basically, it's quite easy, right? Rome was unable to take the war to Carthage because it lacked a fleet. Right? It really lacked this fleet. Right? So this was what was going on. And yes, in my own notes here, my history teacher embellished this, but copying a captured Carthaginian ship. So as we start to get into this, right, we can talk about these different wars, right, and what we're going to do, right. We're going to give you these dates, and then we're going to flow onto some of these other facts and figures, right? So this is still giving you a bit of an overview, right? So what we've got the Second Punic War. You can see there that now what's happening is all that stuff is red and all that stuff is purple, right? So this other war itself, so basically what happened, if we want to go to the dates for the other one, that Punic War lasted 23 years, and there you go, 241 BC it ended, and there's the other Punic War. So you talk about a couple of decades of peace, and then you'd have another Punic War, the Second Punic War. So 218 to 201 BC. This is a 17-year war. So these are two armies continually fighting each other. To give you an idea of this, right? The First Punic War, 23 years, right? Alexander the Great managed to march his army all the way to Afghanistan, managed to march it all the way through to India, managed to conquer Egypt, managed to do all these things in half the length of time, in half of 23 years, basically. So that when you, again, if you're a 20-year-old and you join the army at the start of that, you're going to be 43 by the time it ends. Shocking. So your entire military life is fought fighting the Romans, or the Romans fighting the Carthaginians. Remember, if this was later modern Roman military service, you served a maximum of 25 years, right? So that probably different back then, these different armies. But again, the Second Punic War, again, just sort of bit of an overview still. And so sort of going along with all of this, and understanding this, and seeing where we are, just sort of this overview before we sort of get into the more of the meat of this structure. And again, another Roman victory. So the Romans in the Second Punic War, right? You can slowly see that the Romans are thinking this out. There's something in this, right? It's almost as if then you've got a Third Punic War where the Romans are totally victorious. So what basically what eventually happens is the whole of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, even after the likes of Hannibal and so on, all of that ends up in the hands of the Romans. So Hispania is now Roman, and bits of Africa as well. And with all of this, what we've got is that we've got this. So you've got Syracuse is on the side of the Romans to start off with, and then it start again. That's right. Syracuse is on the side of the Romans to start off with. Then it goes onto the side of the Carthaginians, and there you got Scipio Africanus, who's this, and then you got Fabius Concata. You got Publius Cornelius is another figure that you might have come across, and then you got Scipio, the big Scipio there. And they're versing Hannibal and his other generals, the Barca generals, for example. And then what you then see is all of these huge changes, right? Because what you do find is that then eventually it becomes like this map that I showed you at the beginning. So this is what we've got. This is how things are changing. We're going to move into the Third Punic War. You can see Rome is starting to get absolutely massive. It's becoming huge. And then you've got this Third Punic War, right? At this stage, by the Third Punic War, the likes of Carthage is reduced to the grey area, and you can see that the Romans are heading to conquer the whole of Greece. You can see that the map's changing. Rome is now becoming really territorial. Carthage is really small now. And then you've got the Third Punic War, which basically is a 3-year campaign. And there is the city wall, the triple defenses. Carthage wants to hold out. It tries to hold out for 3 years, and then this is the Romans. Somebody said to me last week, Carl, you're so romantic about the Romans, and I don't think I was romantic about the Romans last week at all. But when you think about the Third Punic War, again, what you've got these facts and figures. Again, you're mind blowing now and thinking, oh my God, there's another Scipio there. But at this stage, Hannibal's well and truly dead. But these figures are quite shocking, right? Carthage is reduced to 100 million people at that stage, right? This is the city. This is the city state. So basically, right? How much of this against the Carthaginian generals, Hasdrubal, and another Scipio, and all those Roman names there. A few Luciuses, quite a popular name. You can see the facts and figures there. So you've got a cavalry, it's a siege, up to 46,000 infantry against 20,000 in regards to the Carthaginians and armed civilians. And you can basically see there the population that's probably reduced to under 1 million, right? 750,000 are killed. They're basically, the Romans just set light to the city and burn people alive. This is what happens, right? The city is, people are burnt to death in the city. The Roman, and then basically 50,000 survivors managed to escape, and they enslave them. So anyone that manages to escape the city, then being burnt alive, right, is enslaved. This is how brutal the Romans are, and the Romans are so brutal in regards to Carthage, right, that the land of the Carthaginians was covered in salt. They got huge amounts of salt, and they spread it on Carthaginian fields. So even the Carthaginians that escaped, they couldn't feed themselves anymore. The Romans were absolutely brutal. They were heinous in what they did to the Carthaginians. And this would not be a story that is unrepeated. The Romans would do it. Anyone who resisted Rome would see the wrath of Rome, right? The idea of Rome was Pax Romana. You don't resist Rome, it's fine. You resist Rome, it's the end of the world. That's what they did to Jerusalem, right? Burning Jerusalem down to the ground. And the Jews rebelling against the Romans. Number of times in history, right? And the disbursement of the Jews in history, and so on and so on. So again, this image of this image of a battle elephant, right? It looks rather interesting, to be honest with you. And this image itself looks very sort of Indus Valley type image, but when you're thinking about that, it's that you've got these elephants, and how many elephants were actually used in battle, I don't know, but surely the Carthaginians would have suddenly realized that elephants is not the way forward, right? But then again, Alexander the Great, when he was fighting his adversaries, they didn't learn from their mistakes. So again, just sort of painting this picture, understanding what's going on, and just a few facts and figures about the Carthaginian world as well. So that's the Carthaginian world at its height, well before the war with Rome, right? That's the height. And they say with any empire, it's going to decline. Look at the British Empire. In roughly in 1922, the British Empire controlled a quarter of the world. Now we're a laughing stock of the world, you know, and but we're still here, right? In regards to the Carthaginians, they weren't there. They were wiped off the map by 146 BC. They ceased to exist. The Romans expunged their existence, and another people that expunged their existence so well is the Etruscans. And one thing I didn't mention about the Etruscans is the Etruscans were different from the Carthaginians, right? Everything north of Rome is the Etruscans, Tuscany. At this point, the Etruscans were expunged from history even before 146 BC. But one of the things with all of this is, and I've just remembered, right? I've just remembered something. What I was going to do with my live shows was I was going to look at the Etruscans as well. And I don't know why I didn't do it, but anyway. But the Etruscans were very peace-loving, and they didn't actually have an army, but the Romans decided to wipe them out as well. So what does that say about the Romans? So here we go, some facts and figures with the Romans, the Carthaginians. Some facts and figures about the Carthaginians. Carthage, various different language. The Punic language, that was the name that the Romans had for the Carthaginians. The Carthaginian War, because of the war with the Punics, the Carthaginian people. The Phoenicians, obviously, the Phoenicians were trading people around the Mediterranean. They had been for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. This is basically Carthaginians in a way. Berber, a language of North Africa. Numidian, language of North Africa. Iberian, so there was sort of a Spanish type language, and obviously one of their other languages was ancient Greece. Whenever you talk about Rome, the language is Italian. But that's not exactly the true story, because the Roman Empire has so many different languages, but the Romans wish you to think it was Italian, right? Latin, Italian Latin, right? But that's not really the reality of the Roman Empire, right? The higher language was Italian, Latin, right? But the lower languages were everything else. Whereas with the Carthaginians, lots of different dialects were spoken. So the Punic religion was really, really interesting. We won't talk about that tonight, but probably do a little bit more about the Carthaginians next week, because I'm not going to get through it all tonight. But so here we go, a monarchy, right? The Romans had a monarchy as well. The Romans had a monarchy and a republic, right? Which is, again, and then you've got a mercantile sort of world, a trading world, oligarchy type world within the likes of the Carthaginians. They went through different stages. The Romans, monarchy, republic, empire, basically, right? So sort of similar model, but things changed. And again, the foundation of Carthage, 814 BC on the 15th of August at 1218. I don't know, but they've got their foundation, as the Romans had, 753 BC, Abu Condita. And Tyre is a Phoenician state, which would have existed in the Levant, which is basically the area of just north of Lebanon. So there you go. They decided sometime in the 500s to become an independent state from the Phoenicians, but they were basically Carthaginian people from 814 BC. And at one stage, the Carthaginian world, 221 BC, right? So this is before the last Punic War, right? They had a population of just under 4.5 million people, right? They had their own currency, right? They were a big world, but it would all be ripped up and taken away by the Romans, and that would be the end of it. There would be also Mauritania, Hispania, Sicily, Africa, right? So all these would be placed into new provinces. So what I'm going to do is check my time. It's 8:27, and what I might do is take a break and have a Kit Kat and lust over images of Kylie Minogue. I bet you didn't. Yeah, never mind. Right, okay then. So let's just let's see. Stop.
Just show me.
No.
Brilliant. Excellent. We can see you all now. Right. So we'll look at some of the fighting stuff after this. We'll look at some of the Sea Battle off Myla. And that's going to be a little. We'll mention those little things and sort of a few Carthaginian victories, war of attrition. Then we sort of look at Hannibal's march over the Alps, and then that should be fine. So right, okay. Anything from you, Emma and Richard?
Dave. It's Dave.
What?
Dave, number 2. Go on. Nothing.
No, not from us.
No, very.
Okay, fairies. David, number 1.
Oh, no, thank you.
Right. Roger, number 8.
No.
And number 1. So the other and next tomorrow will be number 1, but neither of them need to know that, do they? It makes them feel special. Yeah. But anything, Anne?
Only I think it was amazing. You did so much detail in that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really learning for me with the Carthaginians. Still didn't know anything about that at all.
Now you do.
Yeah.
Now we do. Yeah.
Now you get the next few weeks. You can have a few sea journeys of Romans and Greeks sailing atop of Scotland.
Yeah, I wasn't sleeping. I take things in better when I close my eyes. Listen.
I do that with a good woman. You just close your eyes.
Oh. You can hear me snoring one day.
Yeah, well, I think
that when you're really concentrated.
We'll move on quickly from that. Roger just concentrates. Right. Okay then. Oh, what announcement did I have the other day? I can't remember. Right. Margaret, she's special.
Very special. In what way do you mean?
Oh.
So the Punic Wars, is that what they're
The
called?
Punic Wars. The Punic Wars.
Yeah. All over. Was the first one about control of Sicily, did you say?
I think it was just Rome wanted to get everything that Carthage had. Basically, when you think about it, it was Rome's way of getting Sicily, and then it would be closer to Carthage, because Carthage was closer to Rome if Carthage controlled Sicily. But if it was the other way round.
It was in Sicily. Was it the Greeks and the Carthaginians?
It was the Greeks, it was the Romans, it was the Messina people, it was the Carthaginians, it was the Phoenicians, it was everybody.
Well, I'm not surprised they set up a mafia. Poor things. What a time they had. You just wonder, they just wanted to control the Mediterranean, everybody, didn't they? Because of the naval routes, the trading. Is that what it was all about?
Yeah.
When you think about the Phoenicians, were quite laissez-faire. When you talk about the 1300s and the 1400s, it's about the Genoese and the people of Venice, and you just so you think, well, you know, that happens years later, and it is a lot about when you think about the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians are fascinating people, but we can't really fix them down because they're all over the shop, because they're traders. If you live in a sea caravan, right, you and you're displaced and you're all over the place, right, it's difficult to get origins and an understanding of that.
Yeah, quite a mishmash, wasn't it?
Mishmash, exactly.
I wonder if it's the hot weather that makes them so warlike.
Yeah.
They are very fiery, aren't they? The Mediterranean men have a very fiery temperament.
You should put up with a red-headed woman, flipping heck.
It's just so disappointing that this seems to be a constant war and battle.
Yeah,
it's
very sad.
So much in this of different people attacking and brutality, and it just seems so sad that man has to do
human
that.
race.
So
exactly.
Pointless, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's exactly. If well, I don't think. Well, there's two schools of thought on this. Some say that warfare agree with that, because up until 1914, right, the world was relatively peace, except for a couple of things going on in Russia now and again. So when you look at 1914, we've already invented submarines, right? We've already got the huge metal ships. We've already got ships like the Titanic. We've already got the Wright brothers. We've already got telephones. We've already got telegraph. We've got all of that. We've got proper planes and so on. And we've got so many advancements. And then I say, well, that could have continued, right? That could have. What could have all of those young men and women created who hadn't died in the war? What could they have created, right? And then the counter argument is, actually, Carl, you're talking nonsense, because 1939, the Germans built up to the war, gave us the V1 rocket, allowed us to land on the moon, and you've got the Enigma machine, and you've got the Bletchley Park, the development of computer technology, and so on and so on and so on, right? And then I could counter argue that we've never been back to the moon. So what did that achieve? And if we were already in the idea of the computer, that was already being developed. And if you do look at the Second World War, and if the Germans hadn't have launched the Second World War, right? There's that discussion over the development of jet technology, which was already developing. There's already the idea of the development of the Spitfire and the Hurricane and those aircraft. So I counter the argument. I say peace is what we could have done all this without war.
Yes. I remember also when we did the Indus Valley, and they'd had a lot of peace for a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
And what they'd achieved, it just seemed a good time that they'd had peaceful time to be able to do that.
Exactly. And again, it's the other counter argument that I've got is that when people we're back to Roman Britain, when people talk about, for example, the Celts, the Iron Age people are always fighting the Romans. And the counter argument is quite simple. If that's the case, we'd have all been placed into slavery. We would all been taken off somewhere, and none of us would be speaking English today, right? Our population would have ceased to exist, and it didn't cease to exist because we're working alongside the Romans. Or then you could argue, actually, most of our population has been replaced by the Germans and Scandinavian, which is complete rubbish as well. There's lots to be said for peace, but when you look at all of this, right? When you look at all of this fighting and stuff, what we're doing, we're looking at masculine archaeology. We're talking about men like to talk about warfare. That's not what I'm doing now. I'm trying to give you a background. So if you take away these wars, right, and then you put the other stuff in place, war is only part of the world. However, war is what we're talking about. The eruption of Vesuvius wasn't war, but that's a major thing that we talk about. For example, at this stage, Egypt didn't even have an army. Egypt did not have an army. It didn't have a standing army. It didn't need a standing army because there was no real threats. Right? Rome was able to take over Egypt because it didn't have an army. And when we look at Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, Mark Antony, Ptolemy, and we think about Pompey and so on. There's a lot less war.
Nature's way of keeping the population down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's controversial.
That's what Mum used to say.
Oh my God, that's what my grandmother used to say. Exactly the same, Emma and Margaret. My grandmother used to say, and the other grandmother used to say, we need a good disease to get rid of the surplus population.
Yeah, it's weird though. It's weird though. After these wars, the women have mostly boys. The male population starts to grow again.
This is the one point that somebody said on the radio the other day, that even with all these wars, we've still got more or less 50-50 population.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Very interesting, that, isn't it?
It is.
It is. And I got two miniature Borroway sheep, and they're beautiful. Right. Judith, anything you want to say?
Nothing, but your enthusiasm for this subject is infectious.
It is.
Good. You've got to be infectious. It gets worse. I'm only just getting into it. Andy.
A couple of things. One, I went to a Roman/Carthaginian site on the Spanish coast, not far from Barcelona, and it was half the city was Carthaginian.
Yeah.
And all those maps didn't show it going really anywhere near there, which is interesting. But that may have been more like a trading port or something. I don't know, but it was definitely called Carthaginian and you could see the difference between the Roman architecture and the Carthaginian architecture. So
was there like a fortress there?
Yeah, it was down on the coast nearby. I can't remember the name of the place, but it wasn't far from Barcelona. So. So that was one thing, and the other thing, going back to the whether things develop more in peace and in war, I think it's actually two separate things. Technology develops really quickly in war through necessity, but art and culture dies. Art and culture only really develops, and you can see this throughout archaeology and history, when all the beautiful Celtic knotwork, for instance, or all these other things, and the mythologies are all created and developed in peacetime, and that's the sure sign that there isn't war, because they've built beautiful, jewelry and armor and whatever, but or houses, So That
We
only
got
happens in peacetime.
prefabs. We did get prefabs, didn't we?
Yeah, and they did last quite long, didn't they?
They were okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been looking at is the First World War poetry. And that certainly created a lot of art in terms
That's
of
true.
in
That's
terms
very
of poetry,
true.
and it was very different from what went
Siegfried
before.
Sassoon, particularly. You're right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But it's kind of weird because there was an art movement called Futurist, which really embraced violence until the First World War, when they went out and saw what it was really like, and it killed it completely.
Who did that artwork of Guernica? Was that Picasso?
Yes, Picasso's Guernica. I love it.
Yeah.
And there's Pablo Neruda, who is trying to think of his nationality, South American, who wrote a poem that was, I just went with Guernica. It just matched it. It was beautiful. You know, that it expressed how bad, you know, it talked about the blood of the children in the streets, you know, which is,
that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because poetry, you're right, poetry does do well in war.
Yeah.
Because of it's a way of expressing, isn't it? But and yet art, you can't really do it with art because people don't want to see it.
No.
You know, so
and yet Guernica is amazing,
music,
isn't it?
That is,
it's a piece of art.
Yeah.
Can I just say something which is a bit of a this is a fly in the ointment big time, right? The Japanese and the Germans have argued that they needed to start their wars because they didn't have resources, right? However, Japan and Germany, within years, become two of the world's leading economies. They're still two of the world's leading economies, right? And Germany and Japan are tiny compared. Well, Japan is tiny compared with the area that it controls now, and Germany is a lot less, right? So the arguments given that we need to control and conquer other countries for those resources are absolutely wrong.
Agreed, totally.
They are categorically and unbelievably wrong, right? Because what the countries that they are now are massively powerful, and they did not need to conquer any more countries to become powerful. And it's this argument about Britain as well. We didn't need the wealth from all these other countries to become great, because most of what we created in Britain, the Industrial Revolution, we didn't have a massive empire at the time of the Industrial Revolution. All of that iron came from Britain. All of that coal came from Britain. All those resources came from us, right? So arguing that we needed an empire is rubbish. I wanted to put that in there because I thought that was quite powerful.
There is one thing with that there was quite a bit of wealth created by the empire that was then fed back into the Industrial Revolution to pay for it.
Okay, you could East India Company, you could argue with that one, yeah.
But you're right, the resources were definitely already here, and which is why the Romans came, you know, so
bloody Romans.
Yeah. And everybody else. So.
Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to do Carthaginians more next. We're going to finish the next week, but we're going to do a bit of Carthaginian architecture, which would be great. Roger's gone off. I got to put my kettle on. And Drina, anything you want to say?
No.
But by the way, I don't have to go out and play with my sheep now because it gets dark at 10, so we'll be hopefully finished by 9:30. So what I want to do is a 10-minute break, and I'll play my sheep after that. Don't tell Roger. Do you know what? I was in a compromising position with one of my sheep earlier on. Very compromising. Michelle was holding it, and I was twiddling around with it, and my body was arced over it, and I thought, this is not a good position to be seen with the sheep.
No. How's that one with the bad hoof?
Oh, can I tell you? They tell you about his bad hoof, right?
Yeah.
So, I was, yes. Do you know what? Right. I've got some images I want to show you on you anyway, right? But it's quite strange because for the past 3 days he's been running around without a bandage on because he managed to get it off, and I've been acting in a way as well. So So when I got hold of the hoof, I thought, oh my God, this all the work that we've done over the past weeks is going to be. And I was looking at his hoof, and amazingly enough, the Manuka honey that we're putting on his hoof is doing a massively. It's actually keeping a layer on the hoof without the bandage on. Right, it's like a wax layer, right? And you want to. If I tell you what, you could lick his hoof now, and it'd be brilliant. You get all the Manuka honey, but point is, it's such it's keeping all the bacteria. He's been running around, and his horn isn't growing, and his pad is actually bleeding, and I've just thought his pad's bleeding, so it's really good. So what I've done, he's got 3 layers of it's like a stretchy bandage. We only use stretchy bandages. We don't use
Will it grow back?
And the problem is the vet said it's going to take 1 millimeter a month, and unfortunately it's going to take a long. The problem is it's happened now, so hopefully by the time we get to the wet season, which is going to be October continually for 6 months, he'll be out of it. But I cannot let him out in the rain with this.
No.
I'm trying to picture a sheep's foot. Is it a hoof?
It's 2. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2. It's 2.
Yes.
A bit like a deer.
Yeah.
Like a deer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What do cows have? Do cows have?
No, they have 1.
They have a horn. No, they don't have a horn. They
like a horse.
Horn. Yeah, exactly. So too technical.
And pigs have little trotters.
I used to eat them when I was a child.
Yeah.
You know the amount of stuff I've eaten as a child: monkey's brains, testicles, everything.
Ice pops.
Wonder why we've got 5 toes.
To show off.
That?
No, nobody even wanted to talk about meat and testicles when I was a child, but I'm glad that really.
We don't get any of that anymore now. You do your sweetmeats and brawn and stuff like that. Well, brawn got banned, didn't it, with Mad Cow?
You know, I remember going into I remember going into a butcher's once, and the butcher said, "Oh, taste this." He was actually giving me raw bloody tripe.
Right.
Did it taste awful? Did you try it?
Try this. You don't need to cook this tripe, so I was eating it.
You have to put vinegar on a tripe.
Right, let's move on, folks. We won't even get at the end of part 1 done. Right, okay, then 10-minute break. It's all right. 8:47. Let's go for it.
Okay.
Chariot next week. Oh, 8:47. Oh. What? I don't know. It's Dirty Roger's fault. Look at him. He hadn't put his teeth in today. Oh, I am terrible. I am terrible to Roger. I'm really bad towards him. Hiya, Rog. The problem is with Roger, we're just too close. Right, okay. So what I could do, if I start from there, with myself.
No, I've got one. Yeah. School. Yeah, no, me neither.
No drama lately, Andy?
No. Oh, sorry, I had to
well.
switch my microphone. No, it's been really quiet. It's been odd.
Yeah. That way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of June is traditionally one of our busiest months, but it's been actually very quiet.
Because people are venturing out more, do you think, isn't it?
Yeah. Certainly since COVID, they definitely are. I know. I was talking to one of my bosses. It was full-time Coast Guard, and apparently it's all around the coastline. Everyone's getting called out more. People are walking out and going around a lot more than they were.
Right. Escape. Freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible times of COVID, you think, oh dear.
I've had a horrible week.
Oh.
I just thought I'd tell you.
Why is that then?
What's happened?
I've been ripped off by a roofer.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was desperate. You know, I've had this leaking roof for the last year, and I've had 2 different roofers come and done repairs in the wrong place. And I couldn't get anybody that was recommended, anybody local. They're all too busy.
Yeah.
One of them said he was booked up for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's about right.
So in desperation, I just went on Google and took on the first man that replied, and he did find it, but he's charged me an absolute arm and a leg way more than it should have been. And then my front door broke.
Oh.
And then I've discovered I've got carpet-eating moths.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
I've got.
You can get a spray for that.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah. Because when we went back down to our flat in London that we're selling, the blooming tenants had let them get in there, so we just sprayed because we had to stay there, and we going, oh god, there's bloody moths all over the place. We sprayed everything and then went out to get something to eat. But yeah, I can't remember where we got it from actually. Might have got it online, but
yeah, it's a chemical.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like the flea spray. You don't have to leave the house for a day or two. It actually it's quite safe. So, but it kills the moths off. So.
Well, I kept seeing these are like little white flies.
Yeah.
Crawling around up the walls. And I didn't think anything of it, but then I moved a piece of furniture and they've been on all the carpet, and when I look around the edges, they've just gnawed away everywhere. Little blighters.
Yeah.
Well, there must be something you can get.
Don't move your furniture.
No.
Did you get your door fixed all right?
Yes, I got I just couldn't, it wouldn't lock.
Oh, those mechanisms do go on them.
Yeah, so I got a man, very nice chap, came from Kendal and did a good job.
There's a guy I use for the house at Windermere, because that's always going, because there's so many people going in and out on it. He's from Kirby Lonsdale, if you ever need a locksmith or a guy, and he's really good. So and not too expensive either.
No, this fella did a good job.
Good.
I think my son broke it. I said, just be careful with the door, it's not locking very well. He said, oh, you've just got to push it in at the top, Mum. And he pushed it really hard and yanked up the handle, and I think he just broke something.
Yeah, they do give after a while, and you just have to replace the whole mechanism in them.
Yeah.
That's what we had to do at Windermere. Something had snapped inside.
Yeah. Well, it's one of these new fangled doors. It's a double glazed door.
Yeah.
And it's got multiple locks. It's just not straightforward.
Yeah. That's what this one was. Yeah. They don't seem to last very long, I'm afraid.
No.
Yeah.
I get a good locksmithing stuff. Very, very good. So I'm not as trouble with the
Anyway, I think
door at the back.
Emma and her dad might come and collect Carl's books.
Oh yes,
Ooh.
yeah, we are. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, isn't that good? But you know, there are a lot, and they're quite big, Emma.
Well, I think they should go in my boot. I think.
Well, you'll need a big boot.
I reckon. I don't know. Put the seats down. I guess.
You'd have to.
Yeah, you do that. I did when we moved them here. I
Did you? Yeah, put the seats down. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put a pile in the front as well. Done that. How many books are there? No, it's different.
Did we think about 300?
I think it was something.
Depends on the thickness.
Some of them are just these paperback antiquities books. There's a couple of boxes of those, but then I've got the Doomsday books. I've got 2 of those, and there's one of the what was it called? The celebrations in Britain in Victoria's Day. That's a huge book. Yeah, there's a lot of it, and loads of books on Rome. Viking, Anglo-Saxon, you name it. Scotland, a lot about Scotland.
Okay.
Changed my whole thoughts of history on the Romans.
I don't know where Carl's going to put them. Has he got some place that he can keep them?
You'll have to build a library.
In his house.
He'll have to build a library, yeah.
He's got places for the animals, the caravan, and the 300. You want to keep them dry anyway, not damp.
Well, I've put most of them in a wardrobe. They were getting a bit damp.
I've been in the wardrobe.
Steady.
What? Well, Margaret invited me back to look at her etchings in her wardrobe. No, we've got our studio in Barry with all the books.
Oh, have you?
So we got so many Bummit books. We're gonna have to get them all in order. We got we put it this way. We've got about 300 on prehistory, about 300 on the Romans, about 100 on ancient Egypt, about 300 or 400 on the medieval period. We've got loads of stuff.
Is that all the books from the old flat you used to have, Phil?
Kama Sutra.
What? Kama Sutra, what's that?
Don't ask him.
What?
Don't ask him.
Ben's asking.
Don't ask him.
I just
encourage him, Roger.
Well, I don't know. But you have these strange names. It's nice to know what they are.
Not Welsh, then.
No.
Whatever you do, when you're in Spain, never call anyone cock-a-noodle.
Right.
What?
Cock-a-doodle, did you say?
No, cock-a-noodle.
Cock-a-noodle.
Just settle down now, Carl, and take it easy.
The well-known phrase that all tourists use, yeah.
I worked in Spain for a little bit on an archaeological excavation, right? And we used to go to this restaurant, right? And on the excavation on one day, they'd been saying, you got to say the word cock-a-noodle. So
what is this?
I'd be saying to everybody all day, blah, 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 cock-a-noodle. So anyway, we went into the restaurant, right? And the waitress come out, really attractive waitress. And I went to the waitress and I said something in Spanish. And I said, "Oh, cock-a-noodle." And then then she come out, slapped me across the face, and the manager come out and she said, and given it, and it's, oh no, he didn't mean to say it, and nobody ever told me what it meant.
And what does it mean?
I don't know.
Oh,
this is something very insulting.
Yeah. They say, no, say, Gogo noodle, no, say, Gogo.
Sounds like Chinese restaurant, could be.
No, it's pretty Spanish, wasn't it?
Well, you're saying it sounds Chinese.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to be a big Chinese restaurant in Barry once, right? And it was and there was this one day I did a review in the local newspaper of the food in there, saying it was wonderful. And I went in there the next time. The manager said, "Oh, you come over to special, please. You sit down." And he started giving me free tea and all sorts of stuff, right?
Mm.
So anyway, I got him a signed photograph, and he had it on the wall in Pida Place next door to this cutting of me giving a review of the restaurant, right? And we used to get all this free food. But one thing I realised, it was next door to the place that the manager would talk to his staff, and it would be like, he's going like this, and apparently that's a friendly way of talking in Chinese. And I was just thinking, and it would just be totally normal.
It sounds like you though. Anyway.
I'm gonna be banned from the internet for doing that now.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's crack on.
And then sit down.
What?
Pat's not here.
Oh, she's not there.
oh.
Anyway, Pat's a bit odd anyway.
I'll have
Right.
fun.
Well, don't be hot. What's all about, Rog? Hey, Roger.
Well, very rude.
Roger, we're getting a gang of people together to see 28 years later. Apparently you're going. Good.
What?
It's a total horror movie, right? With blood and guts everywhere. It's good. You'll like it.
Oh, oh, oh. No.
And the big question is, who's coming to see Downton Abbey with me, watching me, loving it?
You know, what was it?
What?
Some nice musical.
What a nice musical.
Red carpet premiere tickets.
Yeah. Sound of music or something.
Well, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You can. I might buy you half a popcorn.
Yeah, something nice like that with a love story. Oh.
Look, Roger, I am not telling you the story about the blow-up rubber doll, okay? I only tell people the blow-up rubber doll story when I come along the excavation.
Bonus.
Oh, God, it's all gone wrong now. My images are all over the shop. Hang on a minute. Right there. Oh, no, cancel. Oh, thank God I saved it. Right, okay. Right, where were we? Hang on, we've got to get back to the Punic War. Elephants.
9 o'clock, all is well.
Shut up! Right,
Yeah.
okay then.
Just tell him to shut up.
Now, what we got to do? What we got to do? We got to get to Messina, right? Now, basically, what we've got to get to we've got to get to the massive campaign, right? And we've got to get to Hannibal, and we've got to get to his victory, right? But before we get to his victory, we've got to get back to the First Punic War, right? So the First Punic War between 264 and 241, we've got Messina, right? And there's some stuff going on at Messina, and there's Mila as well, the Battle of Mila, right? So what do we do first? And I've got to see, we got to do Messina first. We've got all that stuff for Messina, right? Yeah, we got to do the Messina stuff. And then we got Mila, right? And there's a special weapon that they use at Mila. And these are 2 Roman victories before we even start, right? You know, right. Oh, and by the way, I might be going back to doing some of my Hare Krishna stuff, because Arton, they've got a new Hare Krishna temple opening in Cardiff. So if I'm doing Hare Krishna chants at the beginning of my classes, don't worry about it. It's all part of my lunacy. Right. So what we've got to do, we've got to go to Messina, right? And the great victory of the Romans over the Carthaginians at Messina and the Battle of Mila, right? So we'll just give you a bit of an overview, right? So what it is, what we've got is that after the capture of the Carthaginian ship, with the Romans added a new weapon to the Carthaginian ship that they had nicked, right? And then they decided to develop a whole load of Roman vessels. They developed what's known as a corvus, which we're going to show you an example of in a few moments, or known as a raven. A corvus was basically a bridge fitted with spikes that crashed down and stuck onto enemy vessels, meaning the enemy vessel couldn't go away. You could board it with soldiers, and then the enemy's defenseless. A bit like you, Roger, in the arms of a beautiful woman. You're totally defenseless. So, yeah, shut up, Roger. Anyway, so basically, look at this there. So these things, which doesn't really show the glory, right? Look at that there. Hang on, it was a boat with a beard. Look at that, amazing. Anyway, there you go. That's known as a corvus. So Roman ships were fitted with these corvuses, which was used to board the enemy vessels. So enabling enemy vessels to be boarded and seized. Yeah, Roger. Yeah, I know you've been seized many times in life, but this is overboard.
I had a few stories there, but you know.
Yeah, shut up, Roger. So anyway, back to this. So this is what we've got. So this weapon was used in a sea battle that was won off Mila. Okay, Mila is near Messina. In 259 BC, we know it in the First Punic War between 264 and 241. See, you can tell I've had sugar now, can you? But the war turned against Rome when it sent an army to Africa under Regulus. You can't make that up, can you? Regulus. After initial victories, he was crushingly defeated in 255 BC on the 14th of August at 8:15, and a relief fleet was completely lost in a storm, never to be seen again. So somewhere in the Mediterranean between Sicily and Carthage is this Roman fleet that was never seen again. They do believe it was a Roman example of the Bermuda Triangle. There's a song there, Rod. The Bermuda Triangle. Forget it. Yeah, got it, Rod. Shut up. So an immense cost, right? The Romans had to build another fleet. And finally, in 241, routed the Carthaginians off the Agata Islands. Now, the Agata Islands is basically on the opposite end of Sicily. So it's all happening in Sicily. So we haven't actually finished this little bit yet. I'm still giving you an overview. We've got to do a bit of death, fighting, and bondage. So in its defeat, Carthage was forced to abandon Sicily, and after the Battle of Messina that we're going to do next. So there's these three crushing defeats that were encapsulating the end of Carthage in Sicily. But then the Romans were just defeated outside Carthage anyway, but we don't talk about that. But in its defeat, Carthage abandoned Sicily, right? Not the Scilly Islands, Roger. It's a completely different place. Roger's a bit thick. Which became the first Roman province. In other words, this is part of the Roman Empire building, even though they're not an empire yet. This became an imperial possession, apart from the great city of Syracuse. That was still in the hands of the Greeks, but they're a bit odd anyway. Therefore, if you watch the film, the last Indiana Jones film, you'll know what I'm talking about. This became. Not going to give that away. This became Roman's first client kingdom or protectorate. In other words, this is Pax Romana, done under the blood and gut sword of their non-Roman policy, which is Pax Romana, which is East Roman. Anyway, that's something else. So it became Roman's first client state. Rome had won by adaptability and a sense of ownership of Sicily that they managed to capture it from the Carthaginians. Their first bit of their campaigning worked. And the other thing as well is that Rome was able to manage to get allies because Carthage didn't actually pay its armies. So there's Messina. Let's look at a little bit of a battle. Look at that there. This great victory over the Romans, over the Carthaginians near the sea. There they are. but this is probably a bit of a wrong reconstruction because the uniforms are completely wrong. Why is it all the reconstructions that they do between the Carthaginians, the Greeks, the Romans, and all the rest of it this period completely wrong? But that's life. So there it is. Messina, there it is. Messina, tomato, that type of thing. So what's happening is the Battle of Messina was probably the beginning of the end for the Carthaginians. They didn't know it. After 100 years, Carthage would no longer exist, right? So this is basically what's happening is the Carthaginians are landing in Lilybaeum, going all the way through Agrigentum. Now, Agrigentum is a great great Greek city, by the way. Great temples and stuff there, but that's something else. Got all the way to Syracuse, Messina, and then the Carthaginians were defeated. Remember, the Punic army, that's another name for the Carthaginians. These are the facts and figures. So this was at the beginning of this huge war that was seemed to go on forever between 264 and 133 BC. So Messina, there we go, Roman victory, Roman Republic. Over these years, Carthage would lose the island. That's it. Carthage, Syracuse. Syracuse, remember, sided a little bit with the Romans, and then the Greek, and then the Carthaginians, and it seemed to go back and forth. So there we go. This is the army. So it seems that even with bigger armies, the Romans are usually able to win out, right? So the Romans have got an army of 9,000. Oh, and there you go, Drina. There's another Crassus. They get everywhere, these Crassuses. Can you imagine being a history teacher? It's this Crassus, it's that Crassus. There we go. It gets everywhere. Anyway, shut up, Rog. So here we go. So the Carthaginians have got their Syracusans, they've got their cavalry, their hoplites, mercenaries, and basically the Carthaginians face massive casualties, 6,000 casualties, which are half their army. And the Romans suffer under 1,500 casualties. So this again is one of those things that makes you remember that the Romans can usually inflict massive casualties on an enemy that is usually bigger than them.
I'm just reading.
So,
yeah, couldn't read.
Shut up, you two. Right. So we're going to do the Battle of Mila now, and remember, the Battle of Mila is just off the Messina Straits, the Straits of Messina, going over to Italy. So I put this in here for Andy. I decided to put this in for Andy. This is look at that there. You can imagine they're boarding there. They're having a good old scrap.
Love the one falling into the water.
Jump into the sea. Trireme. The trireme is probably not exactly sure that is. The oars don't really fit right, but anyway, so that's a nice reconstruction from 1900. That's the Romans at the Battle of Mila. This is what's going on, and here's some facts and figures. This is 260, 4 years after the Battle of Messina, and there we go. We got the Romans versus Carthage. Their leader, not the Hannibal, right? Hannibal Gisco. There are a few Hannibal. And notice again, after the Romans are able to work out military activities on water, basically what the Romans are doing, they want to fight land battles out at sea. This is what they're doing. By boarding ships, you can fight alongside each other. This is where the Romans get an advantage. This is what the Romans are doing. So they're taking land battles out to sea. And interesting enough, this takes us to another moment in history. The wonderful Caligula. As you know, I like Caligula. Nobody else does. Caligula on Lake Diana, the Nemi boats. We've got the two boats that were excavated by the archaeologists of Mussolini in 1928, 1930. They drained the lake. They found these two huge sort of barges there. And basically, they use these barges for miniature battles out on boats, right? And this inspiration has actually came from this. Caligula wanted to recreate the Punic Wars out on Lake Diana, right? Anyway, moving on. So what we've got, you can see here the casualty, right? So we've got 103 Roman vessels. now, this is a quickly put together Roman fleet, by the way. This has been built in a few years, right? 130 Carthaginian ships. Carthaginians lose 13 of their ships. Altogether 44 damaged, and some captured. So here we go. 31 captured, and triremes, quinqueremes, septiremes. This is to do with the types of oars that they got. And there we go. Men killed altogether, 7,000 killed and 3,000 captured. So they were probably able to capture them because their ships were boarded. This new Roman technology, and there it is again, the corvus, right? So what I'm going to try to do now tonight, I try to get to all my images and try to do all my images tonight by 30:30. But that's the corvus. That's the vessel that they use. That's the thing that they're using to board vessels, right? So there's Mila. So these islands out of the coast of Sicily. And again, this is an archaeologist's paradise to actually excavate the 13 vessels that went down. And interestingly enough, Roger, when you think about this, this is history being told by the victors. We don't really get the same statistics by the amounts of Carthaginian battles that were won out at sea. Because there is one thing, Roger, right? The Carthaginians did win naval battles against the Romans. And this is how the Romans were able to learn from other people's tactics. So again, when we think about this, and we think again about getting some of the nitty gritty, right? And this is another naval battle, right? That involves 450 vessels. And this is T.S. Eliot's poem known as The Wasteland, about the Battle of Mila. Here we go, Roger. Let's get into it, man. Mon frère. I need to do my French at the end. I'll practice my French. Hypocrite, lecture, mon soblom, or whatever. Here we go. T.S. Eliot. There I saw one I knew and called him, crying, Stetson, you who were with me in the ships at Mila, that corpse you planted last year in your garden, has it begun to sprout? Will it bloom this year, or has the sudden frost disturbed its bed? Oh, keep the dog far hence, that's friend to men, or with his nails he'll dig it up again. You hypocrite! Whatever the French is there. Basically, that's referring to the fact that from these noble origins, right, Mila would be the beginning and the end for the Carthaginian world. This is another one of those battles. I know we love battles, but this gives you an idea. This is on the opposite side of Sicily, right? This is a massive naval battle involving 450 vessels. And the one thing about this is, again, it's a Roman victory, and it's starting to look right. The treaty is 241 is the end of the Punic War, and that means that Sicily is completely ceded to the Roman world. There we go. The Carthaginians lose 120 vessels, 50 of them sunk. Can you imagine 50 vessels out at sea under the water there? The Romans, even though the Carthaginians lose 50 vessels, the Romans still lose 30, and they got 50 of their vessels damaged. But with those types of losses and 10,000 men captured, it was to be the end at sea and end at land for the Carthaginians. So on the 10th of March, this was when the treaty was signed in 241 BC. And there it is, the Battle of the Aegatas Islands. And that, again, seals the end of this Punic War 1. So there it's how it started, right? And I'm going to tell you some other stuff now. So there's how it started. By 241, you can tell on the map the whole of Sicily's gone. Syracuse sort of survives for a little bit longer independently. But here we go. So after between 241, 218, some weird stuff is happening, right? And it's not an active war. It's like a Cold War. So here's some facts and figures. Carthage plunged into chaos by a revolt of its unpaid mercenaries over the period between 241 and 218, which was going to be the start of the next Punic War. So basically, the unpaid mercenaries stood back as Rome annexed Sardinia and Corsica. These had been Carthaginian possessions. So in other words, the Romans saw that the Carthaginians weren't paying their standing army or their mercenary army. So in other words, Rome went in and said, look, boys, if we pay you, would you now side with us? And this is how the Carthaginians lost Sardinia and Corsica between 241 and 218. And this was all happening by the Second Punic War. However, Spain itself bode better. The Carthaginians captured more territory in Spain. And the territory in Spain was controlled by the Carthaginian general known as Hannibal Barca, one of two Carthaginian brothers. And what would happen then is that they were able to pay their army from the mines that Spain had. So Spain had a lot of silver mines. And Hannibal Barca had a son known as Hannibal. And in 221 BC, Hannibal wanted revenge for the First Punic War and determined to strike directly at Italy, the source of Rome's vast military power. The second Punic War would begin. This time, it would be the Carthaginians starting the war. So the first war was basically started more or less by the Romans, the people of Messina wanted a bit of help from the Carthaginians. The second war was actually started by the Carthaginians. Hannibal had wealth. He could actually pay his army. He could actually pay his Spanish army. Forget about what happened in Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. And this gives you a bit of an overview. So what happened? There he is, Hannibal. Let's give you a few facts and figures. This man in history. He was born in 247 BC. He was born at the time of the First Punic War, but he probably wouldn't have known anything about it. There's some weird story about what happened to Hannibal, but he was well dead before the Third Punic War, so at the age of 66. And what we're getting here, right, is this sort of Carthaginian story, right? There's a bit of peace in this period between the last Punic War, and this is what would happen next. So let's get on to this. So he's a general. We do believe he had a son, and his father was this Hannibal Barca, and he had a brother as well. These would be generals, and so on. And we've got a tribute at the end today to Hannibal, right? And we've got a tribute to the Carthaginians. And this is the Battle of Cana, which would be an amazing victory. This would put Hannibal up with those generals that would be great generals. And if we think and we get some stats and figures, right, and we'll go on to this in a moment, and we'll look at the battle. Maybe if we don't finish the battle today, because it probably wouldn't be good to rush it. But what we've got is the Carthaginian victory. Carthaginian forces gained foothold in southern Italy. Defection of some Roman allies, including Capua, to Carthage. And can you remember where Capua was? Capua was south of Rome. just north of Naples, right? Capua was also the place where Spartacus rose up in rebellion in 74 BC. So all these types of things relate. So Cana in Italy, 2nd of August 216. So this would be this huge victory of the Carthaginians over the Romans, and the Romans would never forget this. They wouldn't, and they would pound the Carthaginians to the very end. So what we need to do is we need to get that image into our minds, and we need to go to the map, and we'll probably go back to some of these facts and figures next week. So again, I remember seeing a chart like this in school, right? And another Greek foundation place. You'll see there's remains there at Saguntum, which is where the Carthaginians now controlled. Obviously north of the Balearics, so they go all the way to all the way over the Pyrenees. And then it would be the great story of the Alps, and you've got Turin there, and all of this. So let's sort of paint some of the facts and figures with this. So this would be Hannibal just deciding to march on Rome. We've got Marseille there, modern day Marseille, Marsilia. And so in 218, Hannibal marched his army, including 37 elephants, over the Alps in a snowstorm. Hannibal's skills, combined with Roman amateurishness, led to a series of Carthaginian victories, leaving Rome almost defenseless after the third annihilating defeat at Cana in 216 BC. Amazingly, only a few allied cities, Capua, Taranto, Syracuse, changed sides, and Hannibal could not capture Rome itself, although he rode around its walls. Now, this is one of the great legends. He actually rode his army around the walls. We won't do the end bit there. We'll leave that for next week. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the battle. Right, so this is a great feat. And there is the Battle of Cana. Cannae, Cana. And so what we've got there is that if we think about this and we put some of the facts and figures in there, Hannibal, you've got two of the Roman generals, Paulus and Servilius Geminus, dying in battle. You've got his dad, his uncle actually at the battle there, Hasdrubal, and you've got Hannibal there and all the other generals. And what you have there is you've got the strength of Cana. Now, this is different. This is very different. You can clearly see that the Roman army is much, much bigger than the army of Hannibal. The Carthaginians, much, much bigger. 86,400 versus 50,000. But the Romans lost. The Romans actually lost this one. And trying to work out some of the bits and pieces here, right, is what you can see from this table is that you've got infantry, mainly Italian, cavalry, mainly Italian, and some other local friends. And you've got a local garrison, so up to 86,400. What's interesting is who's fighting for Carthage. You've got 2,000 slingers from the Balearic Islands. You've got 21,000 Gauls. Now, these Gauls weren't from Spain. They were from modern-day France. So 3,000 people from Spain fought in the army. 8,000 came over from Africa. Carthaginians, 8,000 Carthaginians. The Numidian cavalry, these were people that were used to fighting in the desert in Africa. These were from Africa. More cavalry from Spain, and more importantly, 4,000 Gallic cavalry. So you can see that the people of Gaul are always going to be a problem for Rome. Well, they're going to be a problem for Rome for another 200 years. Now, this is why I clearly wanted to do in 2 weeks Roman historians like Livy, like Polybus. I just wanted to give you an idea who these people are, what point they're writing, because when you're talking this'll entice Judith to love my classes forever. A mention of Arthur and Lloyd George. A mention of Arthur because when we talk about King Arthur, we talk about lots of different writers talking about Arthur. You know, Geoffrey of Monmouth. We try to see something in Bede. We try to see something in Nennius, and who are these people, right? But what we need to do is when we're looking at Rome, we've got to do something similar. Who are these historians? What are they about? Are they Greek? Are they Roman? Who are they? So that's why we're going to do a class on that. So thinking nicely here. So if we look at the numbers of Romans, there's 86,400, and Roman casualties 80,000. Again, look at that. 86,000, 80,000 Roman casualties, and that is amazing. So in fact, most of the Roman armies wiped off the field, is completely wiped off, and the people who are actually writing the history about this are Roman historians, Livy and Polybus. So okay, forget about Livy's figures. Polybus is saying that 70,000 Roman soldiers out of the 86,000 were killed. 10,000 Roman soldiers were captured. 3,000 escaped, and that was it. Okay, Livy, 48,000 killed, 19,000 captured, and 14,000 escaped. These are Roman writers. In other words, the Roman writers are saying that this is probably the worst defeat in Roman history. Except there's another one which happens in the mid 200s against the Assyrian Empire, but that's something else. But I think it's the Assyrian anyway. It's the world of the Persians. But this is one of the biggest defeats in Roman history ever, right? It's a bit like the British Army's defeat at Singapore. This is huge, and this is being written about by the Romans. So what's basically happening is that the Roman historians are writing actually the Carthaginians lost between 5,700 killed and 8,000. A small, it's that I know that's just under a fifth of the force, but that's not as much as the Romans. So again, remembering all this and remembering how this is actually told and discussed. Next week we're going to do the Battle of Zama, and again I just want to show you that what we're doing is that they're marching all the way from Turin. You can imagine, there you go, they're going to go over the Alps and all the way top of Italy. Aratum, remember, 37 elephants going all the way down to Cana, all the way down to Capua, right? Tarentum, and they're going marching around and around and around, and eventually they head back to Italy. Not Italy, they head back to Carthage. So this would be really good to start with, to basically mention bit about blood next week, and then what we're going to do, Hannibal, we'll chuck a bit of architecture in next week, and what we've got to do is 9:33 now. It's getting late. Pat needs to go to bed, otherwise she won't join us next week, so there we go. So let's finish this now and find that that was a good place to stop there, because it sort of left us hanging, which is great. So okay then, so let's start off with any questions. Should we start off with, we'll do Roger, then David. Go on, Roger, you first.
No, that's okay, Carl. It's got a lot to take in there.
Roger went quiet in that bit.
Yeah.
So,
He went quiet.
yeah,
Shocking.
no, that's fine.
Cheers, Rog. Right, David.
Yeah.
Not you, you're the one.
The other David.
Oh, Dave.
I never
No.
heard of any of all this before.
And
Very
next
interesting.
week, David, you're going to do some more battles.
Oh God.
Oh, God.
Good night, all.
Good night.
I appreciate that, David. No, night.
Good night.
Bye.
No. He loves battles. You can tell he's a bloke.
Oh,
Well,
Right. Do you know what? My dad watches these war films all the time, and it's like it's like the retirement thing for men, Andy. You're going to be watching war films. It happens. Judas has come back on. Right, okay then. Right. Who should we do questions next? Pat.
When I think of Carthage, I always think of the library. Wasn't there a huge, wonderful?
No, you think Alexandria.
Alexandria.
Oh, it was Alexandria. Okay. Carthage, they didn't have a big library, huh?
They probably had a big library, but it went up in smoke with everybody else.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think anyone cared about saving it when it went up in smoke. Thanks for that, Rog. You know, really appreciate your contribution, Rog.
thank you.
Okay then, Andy.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? So kind of coming and going and coming and going and coming and going. But,
the thing is, I'm surprised what David said. He didn't know any of this, and I'm thinking, well, what did they teach you in school?
Oh, we never did Carthage. We did Marco Polo.
So we did Marco Polo as well, but that was the infant school.
Yeah, but it's I've learnt about it a lot since. I always was surprised that he got that far. It's almost like he overstretched himself. Got that far, took it all, and then lost it. Yeah.
We didn't do anything like that at school. I remember having to learn all the clauses of the Corn Laws and dull ditchy things like that. I never liked history because it was always boring.
Yeah.
This has been much more exciting. I mean, today it's been, it's really could have been an exciting.
There's elephants.
Warrior.
It could be better. There's a few people online on YouTube wanting me to do this naked.
Right.
What?
Well,
that woke him up. Yes.
Yeah, when Anne was talking about that, then maybe I should spice it up a bit more and just do this naked as well.
Really?
Oh, Jamie Oliver did the naked chef. You could be the naked archaeologist, but you should remember
don't encourage him.
Naked.
When I remember seeing Keith Chegwin naked, that was something.
Right.
But I was only a crocodile that day. I was dressed as a crocodile. I wasn't naked.
Cheggers plays pop. Yeah.
No, I was a crocodile, and he was running with sand. And don't ask.
It always went wrong for him.
But he did. He was fully dressed when he signed my my piece of paper.
Right.
I can't remember what he signed now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Keith
Chegwin naked, and I was a crocodile on his show.
Were you?
Yeah.
God, that Cheggers plays pop.
Was a ball of fun. He couldn't stop himself. He was hilarious guy.
Wasn't he with Noel Edmonds in something?
Yes.
And Maggie Philbin.
Yeah, Maggie Philbin. Yeah, he was. He
was that Swap Shop?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Who was he married to?
Maggie Philbin.
It was Maggie Philbin, was it? Yeah.
Sarah Green, was it?
No. Maggie Philbin.
Maggie Philbin, yeah.
I'm sure it was Maggie Philbin.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree, love. Don't worry about it. Don't mind me. I don't say these things for the sake of it. It's fine. Get over it.
Back.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me. Who sang that?
Stop laughing a lot of the time.
Can I ask you about?
No, you can't ask if I'm free and single next
week.
28 years later. Go on then, Margaret.
Can I just ask you about Hannibal's elephants?
Yeah.
Have they actually found any elephant dung upon the Alps?
Elephant dung on the Alps?
shut up, Roger. Just shut up. Right. So.
Well, they ought to be looking. They should be looking if they're worth their salt.
They have been looking, and they've never managed to find the exact route they took.
So basically, you are right. If they're going through ice, there would be preserved in the ice loads of dung.
Yeah. Hey, maybe that would be global warming. We might actually find out.
Yeah. I believe that kind of elephant is now extinct. It was a smaller species.
Ooh.
It wasn't like our present day.
Hang on a minute. If they were small bloody species, how the hell were they able to have those things on their back in the first place?
Yeah, they
were still huge. They were still huge, but
they were awfully butch.
Maybe not.
And what did all these thousands and thousands of people that were killed, all these battles?
Yeah.
What were they wearing? Did they all wear helmets?
Oh, they were wearing lots of leather, love. Oh no, this is the thing. A leather jerkin, leather all bits and pieces are far better. If you've got really thick leather on, right, it can take the blow of an axe, right, or a sword, and it could take a bodkin, right. With armor, the problem is with armor, you're dented, and you're going to get bruises on your flesh and all sorts of things. And also, if you've got if you've got damage to your armor, it's getting it off is a nightmare as well.
Well, that must have been a massive industry with all those.
What leathers?
all
leather for everything. That leather underwear, keep you warm.
All those helmets. Is that what the women were doing? Just making uniforms for the soldiers?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Right, okay, right. Let's get right. We still got to do the two women and Andy. We'll just get oh my God, we'll just get Emma and oh God, whatever Emma and Richard, David. Oh for God, whatever your bloody name is. Anything you want to say?
It's Dave, mate. I'm from London. It's Dave, all right? Call me Dave.
White.
No.
Right, do you want to say anything?
Nothing from us, lovely. Nothing.
Oh, thank Christ for that. Right, Drina.
Emma, come back.
No, I won't come up and see you. I don't want to fall down any bloody holes.
Hey, Roger fancies you, Emma.
Lovely woman.
Right, okay then, Drina. Anything you want to say?
No, thank you. No.
Oh God! Oh my God! Judith, can we have a bit of sense, please?
Probably not. I've got nothing to say though. You'll be pleased to hear. Thank you.
Oh, what a relief! What a relief! Right, whatever. Do you know what? I got a guilt thing, right? I was in it's something serious yesterday. I was in the pub, right? Yeah, and a woman working behind the bar was called Claire, right? And she said, "You're welcome to come and see the barrels in the cellar." And I just thought, no, I am not going there. No, I've learned my lesson. Whatever you do, Roger, if a woman invites you down below
the cellar,
in a building,
I just realised what I just said. Right, yeah, okay. Right, let's move on. Andy.
No, I haven't got anything to add to that. Thanks. You already asked me.
Oh, thank God for that. Right, okay then. Okay. I'm sure it's been fun for you tonight as much as it's been for me. Right. Hopefully we won't be going as long tomorrow and next week. I can probably start a little bit earlier. But other than that, nothing else anyone wants to say?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, okay, good.
Very interesting. Love the program.
Good.
I'll keep watching.
Keep watching. All right then. I'll deal with these comments online about me doing these classes naked. Other than that, thank you very much, Judith, Andy, Drina, Margaret, Anne, David, Emma, Pat, Roger, the other Anne as well, and everyone who knows me. Take care. Night night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Night, folks. Enjoy.
I've got to take him off now.
Enjoy, Rog. Dirty Rog. Roger wants to stay on for you, Emma. Oh, no, he's not. He's gone. Rog! You frigging faggot. Well, you're still there. I got Roger's kitchen at this minute. Bloody hell. What am I going to do with Roger's kitchen? He's still there. Rog!
No.
We've just finished your plank.
You what?
We've just finished.
What's happened? You've left the screen. Oh.
Yeah, I'm still here. Everyone else is gone.
Oh, right. See you then.
Still right. Night.
Oh, there you are, right.
Yeah, I'm still here, love. Don't mind me. It's fine. It's okay.
Oh, the back of it.
I got all
Okay.
night, Roger. Don't mind
Yeah.
me. I'll stay here all night. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I've got nothing else to bloody do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, get on. You can enjoy it.
Hang on, Roger.
Yeah.
I just gotta do my. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'll get it. See
No,
ya.
Rog. Christ almighty. I don't know. I don't know if that was easier tonight or what. The camera was a bit shit, but that's life. Oh God, that's life. I'm gonna call it a day now. We're gonna look in the chat box. Oh, how does this work on the chat box? Oh my God. No, it's actually quite easier because it's side on. So there's nothing in that chat box one, nothing in new chat there, nothing in the main chat there, nothing in the chat for everyone, nothing in that box for you. There, dun, 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 dun. Nosta, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us. Nosta chi, diolch yn fawr chi, gwelwch chi eto. Na. Do, 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 do. Ba, ba, da, ba. Da, 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 da.